When I say the word networking, what do you picture? For most people, it's awkward small talk, forced handshakes, and trying to collect as many business cards as possible.
And Chris, that version of networking just doesn't work. It feels transactional because it is transactional.
Today, we're going to show you a different way. Networking that feels natural, networking that builds real relationships, networking that actually opens doors.
Welcome to Building Your Career Blueprint.
I'm Chris Dotson.
And I'm Tom Borg.
Welcome back to Building Your Career Blueprint, the podcast for college students and recent graduates who want to launch their career with intention, confidence, and a real plan. Last episode, we talked about the proactive job search, why applying online isn't enough, and how to create opportunities through direct outreach.
Today, we're gonna go deeper into one of the most important skills in that process, networking. Specifically, how to do it without feeling awkward, pushy, or fake.
Here's the truth. Most people avoid networking because it feels uncomfortable, but the discomfort usually comes from a misunderstanding of what networking actually is.
That's right. Once you shift how you think about it, networking becomes something you can actually enjoy doing.
That's right. So let's start by naming the problem. Why does networking feel so uncomfortable to so many people?
Chris, I think it comes down to a couple things. First, there's the fear of rejection. We all have that. You're putting yourself out there, you're approaching people who don't know you, and there's always a chance they'll brush you off.
No doubt about it. There's this little social anxiety that can creep in as well, too, for those who may deal with some social shyness. But sometimes it can also feel inauthentic. Like you're only talking to somebody because you want something from them. And that doesn't really feel good either way.
Right. And that puts a person in the wrong frame of mind where they're thinking that they're trying to get something for nothing. So the third thing I want to add to that, most people don't know what to say. They walk into a room full of strangers and they freeze. What do I even talk about? That crosses their mind as they walk into that room.
So here's what I've noticed when working with students and early career professionals. The awkwardness usually comes from one of two places. Either they see networking as a performance where they're up on stage, they've got to be impressive, they've got to be charming, they have to say all the right things, or they see it as taking, like they're the only one getting something, and the other person can sense that.
And both of those frames make networking feel like work, hard, uncomfortable work.
So let's reframe it in a way that can be a little bit more positive.
Right. So here's the mindset shift that changed everything for me early in my career. Networking isn't about collecting contacts. It's about building relationships. And relationships aren't built by impressing people. They're built by being genuinely interested in other people.
And that's one of the key things, Sam, being genuine here. When you approach someone with real curiosity about who they are, what they do, the conversation feels different for both parties. You're not performing, you're not taking, you're connecting.
That's right. Think about the best conversations you ever had. What made them good? Usually it's the other person, they seemed interested in you. They asked questions, they listened. They weren't just waiting for their turn to talk.
That's right. And that's what good networking is all about. You're the person who's genuinely curious. You're the person who listens. And that part is memorable.
That's right. So what we're talking about is building a strategy, building a plan, being prepared. Here's another brief. Networking isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice of building relationships over time. You don't have to walk out of every conversation with a job lead. You just have to walk out with a connection. Someone who now knows who you are and has a positive impression of you.
It takes a little bit of the pressure off when you see it through that frame, doesn't it, Tom? You're just going in like, it'd be nice to just meet a couple of new people here and we'll see where it goes. I think in networking is like a garden that you're growing. You got to plant the seeds, you got to water them, you got to cultivate it over time. Over time, those connections compound. One conversation leads to an introduction. That introduction leads to another introduction. Eventually, you have a network of people you trust, and they trust you, and they think of you when opportunities arise.
That's right. And you think about it, when you're in those types of situations, if you, as you said, you're trying to just create relationships. Forget about finding a job. Just get in there, meet people, take a genuine interest in them, and you'll be surprised at what can happen from just that approach. So that's how careers are built, not through one magic conversation, but through dozens of small ones over the months and over the years.
And that's how we start to shift from transactional to transformational conversations. Well, before we talk about how we get into the transformational ones, let's talk about what not to do. There are a few common mistakes that people make networking feel awkward for you and for the other person.
And we've seen them. You've seen them. You go out to one of these networking
Tom, I've been guilty of them.
I'm sure I have been too. But the first one, I remember attending a chamber networking event years ago, and a woman, she came in and she had her business cards right in her hand, right? That's the first red flag. And she was going from one person to the next saying, hey, how you doing? Shake their hand, give them a card. You need something, give me a call. And she went on from one person to the next. And I thought, boy, that is probably the best way not to network at an event. So we call that hustling the room, trying to meet as many people as possible, rushing through conversations, constantly looking over someone's shoulder for the next person to talk to. But does that make you feel important when they're looking over your shoulder for somebody else? So all of those things, people can feel very awkward when they're trying to communicate with you, and that type of a person, or that person is talking to you that way. It can make you feel pretty uncomfortable. Go ahead,
So
Chris.
another one is leading with what you want. If the first thing out of your mouth is, "Hey, looking for a job," you hire anybody else who is. You've
Mm,
already jumped into the transactional nature of it. We've already skipped over the part where let's get to know these people. Let's find out what
mm,
they're about. So it's just again, it's we're looking for a shortcut. We might feel uncomfortable, and it's like, oh, I'm here to find a job. So let me just start asking everybody about who has a job. You have a job. Do you have a job? Do you have a
yeah.
job? Right? It could be like that. And wouldn't that be great if it was just like Oprah Winfrey's like, you get a job, you get a job. Unfortunately, Tom, it doesn't quite work that way, does it?
No, you don't want to do that. So let's go to the third point. Number three, talking too much about yourself. Networking isn't a pitch session. If you spend the whole conversation talking about your resume and accomplishments, it gets pretty boring. And the other person will just simply check out.
Agree. I keep thinking back to like, there's a couple things I think about when I think about that part. Sometimes you get a little nervous and you start talking about yourself and you're going, like, oh, this person's showing interest in me. But sometimes I think about the football player who celebrates by pointing at the name on the back of the jersey. You ever seen that one? Tom, when you're watching like a football game, it's like, look at the name, my name, Dotson right there. I'm the guy.
Uh,
It's like, okay, it's a team sport, buddy. Like we're all making little plays here. Somebody might have got
mhm.
pressure on the quarterback that allowed you to make that interception in the first place here. So anyway, I just think that's interesting. Or one of
That's
my favorite
funny.
ones too. I
Yeah.
like I like the show Ted Lasso, and there's this character whose name is Jamie Tart. And after he scores a goal in one of the first episodes, he's running around saying "me," and the coach leans over to one of his things like, "Is he saying me?"
That's
Anyway, it's
funny.
just funny. So I get it. Like one of the things I like to just point out with that too, Tom, is, and those are like over the top examples of people who are like maybe have a little
Yeah.
too much like arrogance. But sometimes it's like we just get in our own head a little bit and we just need to slow down and just be present with the person. Because sometimes it can just come from a place I start babbling because I'm uncomfortable. And some people
Mhm.
talk. They just talk and they just talk in those moments because they feel uncomfortable with a little bit of the space. They just keep going. So
That's right.
another thing that I see, Tom, is people just not following up. You might have a great conversation with folks, you exchange that contact info, and then nothing. But this is one of the biggest missed opportunities that we see, right? It's just that lack of follow up. And that's where the relationship really gets built deeper.
That's right. And there's a number of ways to follow up, right? Maybe send them an email, maybe a follow up phone call, maybe send them an article or email them an article of something they might be interested in that you discovered that they were
Mm.
looking for. And so there's a lot of ways to reach out to people after you've met with them the first time or met them. So there's a ton of things. We could probably have 5 podcasts on networking. Maybe we will down the road, but let's go on to the next point we wanted to cover today. Fifth point. That's being inauthentic. That's trying to be someone you're not. People can sense when you're putting on an act, and it makes them trust you less, not more.
This is an interesting one for me, Tom, because if you remember, I know I'm sure you've heard it too, but the whole fake it till you make it. So that's
Mm,
one of these things where it's like, well, it's not really being who I truly am, but it's who I want to be at times, stepping into trying to do something new. And I think that is one of the nuances that we get more in depth when we have more time with folks is trying to think through how do I honor who I am, but still be willing to step outside of my comfort zone? Because it's going to feel a little bit weird, a little bit awkward as you're growing your networking chops, just like any skill that you learn throughout life. You're not going to be great at it right away. And so it might feel a little inauthentic or weird, but it's like it's practicing, it's being intentional, it's trying things out, it's not pretending to be somebody you're not. It's trying to be comfortable being uncomfortable and doing it anyway. One of the things I love from like Brene Brown talking about like courage, it's being afraid and doing it anyway. So I don't want to confuse that for inauthenticity, being true to who you are, but saying, hey, there's something that I do want here. I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to develop, and I'm going to show up anyway. So I think that's another one of these things related to number five, where I might just not show up in the first place because it's uncomfortable.
absolutely. That's the whole point there when you're talking about getting outside your comfort zone. You're going to be outside your comfort zone the first few times you do this, maybe for several times, but that's okay. That means you're growing and that you're going to get better at what you're doing because the more you do it, the more you're going to learn about how to do it. And that's all part of your strategy. So, all right, let's get practical. You're at an event, you see someone you like to talk to. Chris, how do you start the conversation?
I think one of the most important things is don't overthink it. Keep it simple. You don't need a clever opening line. Just a genuine, like straightforward introduction works perfectly well. I'm Chris. I don't know that we've met before. What brings you to this event? No pressure, no performance, just a normal human greeting. Add a handshake in there, some eye contact to go along with it. But hey, pleasure to meet you. Often you can look at a name tag. People are more name tags. Tom, nice to meet you. Chris Dotson. Excited to meet you today.
Exactly.
What brings you in? What brings you to this
Yeah.
event today?
It's
Boom.
it's just as easy as that. See, the key is asking a question that invites them to talk. What brings you, like you just said, or how did you get into this field? Or where are you working? What are you working on these days? Or what are some challenges you're experiencing in your industry? Ask open-ended questions. Those are questions that are going to require more than a couple words to answer. That shows that you're interested in. Chris, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So like I think open ended is important thing just to double click on for just a second there. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, this is your first time at one of these events? Right? Closed. Open question. Nope. I've been to a couple of these before. First one, more interesting. Is like, hey, tell me about what brought you in today. Just a different question. Here's a couple others. What do you most enjoy about what you do? How did you
Ah.
get started in your career? What's keeping you busy these days? And this is one of my favorite ones for favorite entries. I stopped asking people what they do. I learned this from Vanessa Van Edward. She's great and another great resource for people to look into. But what's something that you're really excited that you're working on right now? Just
Mm.
a new fun question that really it's like, and you're inviting somebody to share something that's energizing and exciting. But
Yeah.
again, this takes an intentional approach and it might come off a little bit like, I didn't land that perfectly or I fumble a little bit with the delivery. But again, practice, it gets more natural.
That's right. And then when you're asking these questions, have fun with it. It could be a question about what are some of the things you do when you're not coming to these networking sessions? What are some of your hobbies? What are you into? And you'd be surprised how you can develop a common theme there where they'll say something and will say, hey, well, I do that. Or maybe they're interested in certain type of books that are out there. You say, well, that's interesting. I just read a book by that author. But the idea is the more you ask those questions, you will naturally identify areas that you have common interest in, and that makes that conversation go a lot easier. So that's all part of it, of course. And then this is crucial: actually listening to the answer. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. We're all sometimes get a little flustered in our head and we're thinking, oh, what am I going to ask next? Or what am I going to say? Just relax and just listen and then just trust your intuition and ask follow-up questions based on what they said. Show that you're paying attention. That's really the key.
So important. Sometimes we do get so much in our own head while somebody's talking. I don't know what I'm going to say next. Just be present. Just be in
That's
the
right.
moment. The best networkers are not the best talkers. They're the best listeners. When someone feels hurt, they're going to remember you.
That's right. I remember Dale Carnegie had a saying said, if you talk to a person about themselves, they'll listen to you for hours. That's what it's about, talking in terms of their interests. Here's a practical tip. I've used this one for a number of years. When you meet someone, try to remember one specific thing about them, something they mentioned about their work, their background, or their interests. Then reference it later in the conversation that you're having with them or in your follow-up when you send that email or that text, whatever it might be. But just shows that you were truly listening.
And a little practical, tactical one on this one, Tom. Like if you're getting business cards, which you should ask for a business card when you exit the conversation, which we're also going to talk about strategies for how to do that as well
Yeah.
too. Just take a little note on the business card. What was something you talked about? Like you may talk to a half dozen people, but if you just have a small little note on there, it's just like a little easy way to do memory recall. When you follow up with them in the next couple of days, you have a little something there as a note of what you talked about that was interesting. So practical, tactical, pretty easy to do. If you don't have a business card, you can connect right with those tap things or those scan things with the QR codes you can do right there and just send them a note right on the spot. Hey, it was really nice to talk about X, Y, Z. I'd love to grab you a cup of coffee. Let's keep the conversation going. And then you can part your ways from there. But anyway, just some practical tacticals that can get you going there.
Absolutely. And to hitchhike on that. So what we like to tell our students is don't just give them your card, but a better way is to ask for their card. And it's a natural response on their part. Say, well, do you have a card? So it makes it easy. So ask for their card first. And that'll make it easier for you to hand them yours as well. So moving ahead here, then let's see here. How about this? Keeping it going is a lot easier than you think. So it's just being genuinely curious. That the questions that come naturally. We mentioned that a little bit ago. You hear something interesting, you ask more about it. Tell me more about that. How did that come about? What was that like, Chris?
You don't like you feel like you have to fill every silence, every void.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay to have a brief pause. We have this like need
Mm.
to like fill empty space. It's one of
Mhm.
the things that I see, and I've had to get better at my facilitation work. Like it's okay to create a little bit of space for things to land, for people to be able to think. And that's perfectly natural, perfectly normal.
Sure. At some point, you're going to want to share a little bit about yourself, and that's natural and appropriate, but keep it brief and relevant. And if they ask what you do, give a clear, concise answer, then turn it back to them. So that's what you might want to do a little preparation where you have the statement that you're going to share with someone when they ask you, what do you do? You might want to practice that, get it down so that you're really comfortable giving it. You don't just make it up as you go. That'll help that conversation go a lot better.
Absolutely. And here's a simple formula: answer their question, then ask a related question back. I just graduated from Eastern Michigan University with a degree in business. I'm exploring opportunities in HR and talent development. Curious, how did you end up in your current role? You've just shared something. You've got the
Yeah.
focus on the connection. You're not trying to pitch yourself.
That's right. And people love to talk about themselves. And we mentioned this the other night when we did a panel over there at the Eastern Michigan University at the Spark building there. That was the idea of keep that conversation going by talking about them. Once you've shared your idea, just go right back to them. Let them be the star. That way they'll just feel that much better because like we said earlier, they know their lines, they know the answers. You just have to ask the right questions. So that's all part of that. So I say now ending the conversation. This is where people get uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be awkward. A few simple lines will work. And you can contact us if you'd like to get a script to this program we're doing today, or at least some of these key points we're mentioning. But here's one. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I don't want to take up the whole evening, but I'd love to stay in touch. That's one. Here's another. I should let you mingle, but this was a great conversation. Can I connect with you on LinkedIn? Next, I'm going to grab some food, but I'd love to continue this another time. Do you have a card? That's another great way. Chris?
I like it. Key is being warm and direct. Don't just drift away. Close
Mhm.
the conversation intentionally. Express appreciation and set up the next step. And but it's 2026. We got smartphones in our pocket. We have for some time. Most people have calendars available. It's like if it's a
Yeah.
good connection, it's like, hey, how do you feel about pulling up our calendars right now and getting 30 minutes on the books to keep this going? And we have a conversation next week. Or hey, you're local, so am I. Here's one of my favorite coffee shops. Could I take you out for a cup of coffee? So again, just even setting that
Nice.
next appointment on the spot, if you think it's a good connection for both of you, it's a great opportunity to just do it right there in the moment.
That's right. And worst that can happen is they say, well, no, I really can't. I'm pretty busy. Okay. Hey, so what? You tried. You asked them, but you won't find out unless you ask. Certainly, more times than not, they'll be more than happy to take that conversation to the next level. So here's a strategy that can make networking much easier, especially if you're introverted or new to it. Bring a buddy.
This is a great strategy. I recommend this regularly. So go to events with a friend or a classmate who also is looking to network. You can introduce each other, provide moral support, and even debrief afterward.
And there's a tactical advantage too. When you introduce someone else, you look generous and connected. Hey, have you met my friend Chris? He's doing some great work in leadership development. And that's a much warmer introduction than trying to introduce yourself.
And look for connectors at the event. There's certain people who are just natural connectors in this world. Oftentimes, they're the people who seem to just know everybody. Event organizers often can be connectors. So are people who've maybe been in the industry a long time. They're just really well connected. If you can build a relationship with a connector, they can introduce you to exactly the right people because they really know just about everyone in that circle in that room.
Absolutely. And Chris, here's another aside. So if you get to the event early, which we recommend you do that, go up to the front where they're checking people and say, hey, do you mind if I take a quick look at the list of guests who are attending? This way you can look over that list and even better, get it in advance, have them email it to you. But look over that list, say, okay, now this person I want to meet, this person I want to meet, that person I want to meet. Now, you may not know who they are because you'd have to be looking for a lot of name tags to find the one that you're really wanting to hone in on. But when you get there, as Chris mentioned, talk to someone that knows a lot of people there, or maybe the organizer of the event, say, could you do me a favor? Could you introduce me to these three people? Not all at once, but one at a time. And that's a great way of being introduced. Here is the organizer of the event who has some prestige and some ranking. He or she is going to introduce you to these other people whom you want to meet. That's a great way to start that out. Don't be afraid to ask for introductions either. If you had a good conversation with someone, you can say, is there anyone else here you think I should meet? So after you've finished your conversation with the one person, ask for an introduction to somebody else. Most people are happy to make introductions. It makes them feel helpful and expands your network very quickly.
I think it's such a great point, Tom. People are naturally wired to want to be helpers. So even just asking for that introduction, people like, I'd love to introduce you to this person in my network. It's just how we're naturally wired is to want to be helpful.
Oh, and Chris, one other thing. So
Yeah,
let's say
please.
you're talking to this person and you see someone that this person should meet, right? Because this person's in a particular industry or whatever, and they would probably benefit from having a conversation with someone else in the room. Hey, I got to introduce you to somebody. Come on with me. And you walk them over, you introduce these two people, and then they go at it. Say, hey, I'll talk to you later. Just gradually work yourself out of that conversation. But that's a nice thing to do. If you're there, serve others. Try to be a connector to other people. That will help you in your own ability just to connect with people, but also put you in a position where people look to you as someone that they want to know in the future.
You're demonstrating value. So being intentional about connecting others and creating that reciprocity. Hey, you're the type of person who's known in the community as being a helper and connecting people. That will come back. I promise you. In,
Oh,
in
yeah.
a big. Let's talk a little bit more about following up and staying in touch. After the event, because the conversation is just the beginning, the follow up is where the relationship really gets built.
That's right. This is where most people drop the ball, Chris, because they just forget, they get overwhelmed, they don't follow up, they just don't do that. Let's put it this way. You just had a great conversation. You collected a business card. Reach out. If you don't, you're going to miss your opportunity.
I would say ideally within 24 to 48 hours. So make it part of your networking strategy. You've got an event scheduled for Wednesday night, Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon. Have a half hour, an hour blocked on the calendar for networking follow ups. Just schedule it. What gets scheduled gets put it on there and then do it. Maybe it feels a little bit weird, feels a little awkward, just like a lot of things, do it first. But I promise you, like if you do it right away and just make it part of the system, this is how I network, it becomes a rule, right? And people follow rules, including you. So do it. And just, you don't think it'd be too crazy. Keep it simple. Hi, Tom. It was great meeting you at the chamber event this week. Really enjoyed our conversation about the business you're building. I'd love to stay in touch. Let's connect here on LinkedIn. If you'd like, I'd love to buy you a cup of coffee sometime soon. That's it. Short, personal, specific.
That's right. And Chris, here's the other thing to that. You're going to see that person, a good chance you're going to see that person again at another event. You can build on that initial conversation you had with them and by sending them a follow-up email or note or maybe an article or something. And then that's where that bridge starts to get longer and longer, connecting with them again and again. And they start to get to know you. And now they're going to get to the point where they know you, like you, and trust you. And that's, again, how you build connection. So the specific detail matters. It shows you're paying attention and you remember them as an individual, not just under context. When you follow up, you give them something that relates back to that conversation. Again, you're building that bridge to a strong connection with somebody.
Right. Really like that. I like that. So it's like, hey, I heard this podcast and thought about you. Just these like small little things like that. Or hey, I read this thing and I know this is in your wheelhouse. Looks like this might be a big disruption in the industry. Are you seeing any effects of this right now? And it's like, hey, I'm showing that I'm paying attention to current events. So that's obviously another plus for you as well, too. But industry trends, but also again, you're making the connection there that can last. You're keeping it alive versus again just reaching out when you need something, which you don't want to be that type of. You don't want to be that type of.
That's right. That's right. So the goal is to stay on the radar and do it in a way that adds value, not just when you need something. That's the difference between networking and relationship building, is staying on the radar in a positive way.
This comes back to mindset again. Can I be helpful to this person? Even if you're early in your career, you could share information. You could make an introduction or simply by someone who shows up consistently. If you join a professional association, again, I've grown up working a lot of the last 10 years of my career in HR circles, and I'm just somebody who consistently showed up as I was growing my career in HR. It was one of my first career pivots I made was from restaurant management into HR. I didn't know people who were in HR circles, but I just started showing up regularly. And then the same thing happened with the chamber. I was known as somebody who showed up regularly. And after a few years of being a member at each of those, each one of them asked me if I'd be interested in joining their boards. I'm now a member of the HR board here in Ann Arbor, and then now at the state level board as well too. And I'm a member of the board of the Ann Arbor FC Chamber of Commerce. But again, I just consistently showed up, shook hands, saw people, checked in with them. And before, again, I got invited a little bit more into the more inner circle here. And it's just helped to more deeply make connections with people. So now it's like if somebody needs coaching or leadership development type work, or their son or daughter needs some support with their career transition, like I'm the person that they're reaching out to because I've consistently showed up and I've been a helping hand to folks.
See, Chris, you've earned their trust. You've earned their respect. And that's why you receive those invitations to be on those boards, because people said to themselves, hey, this guy's going to be around. He's a real deal here. He cares about what he's doing. And that comes across by just being yourself. That's what we're talking about here. When an opportunity does arise, job opening, a project, or a connection, you're going to be top of mind because you've built a real relationship, not just collected a contact. So let's address something important now, something else that's important. A lot of people think networking is only for extroverts. That's not true. Chris?
It is. No, not true. Some of the best workers or networkers I know, excuse me, are introverted. And they might not be working the room and trying to meet everyone, but they're having often fewer but deeper conversations. And you may not be as comfortable joining the big, large circle, but just one on the side. And oftentimes that's where those deeper relationships are often built, and it's a more effective strategy.
That's right. So if you're introverted, give yourself permission to network in a way that fits you. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. You just have to be present and curious. One thing I want to add to that, you don't plan on meeting 100 people when you go to a networking event. Think about 3 or 4 people that you'd like to connect with. That would be substantial. You can just do that.
Honestly, Tom, one meaningful connection walking away from it can make all the difference.
That's right.
I had met somebody through a networking event at one point in time, and again, the relationship's just grown and grown over the years, and the amount of referrals and business I've gotten from that person has not been small. Real opportunities have come from it, and again, started just with one conversation. We got
Yeah.
to know each other, have a high level of respect for one another.
Hmm.
I do a lot to support them, and they do a lot to support me. There's good reciprocity. A couple things I just want to add, though, for those folks who might be a little more introverted, or I think, and sometimes we confuse introversion with shyness. So we can go in a little bit more depth about why those things are different at a later time. But a couple things that I think can help with people who fit in each of those buckets. Set a
Okay.
small goal. Instead of meeting as many people as possible, say, I'm going to have two meaningful conversations. That's the goal. Be over an hour and a half. Let's have two meaningful conversations. It's
Hmm.
achievable. It's less draining. You might think about arriving early. The room is less crowded at that point in time. Conversations might be easier to start, or you can settle in before it gets overwhelming. And don't be afraid to take breaks. Sometimes you got to step outside, grab a drink of water, go take a lap around the building. I've done that before. I've been at events and literally walked outside, gotten a breath of fresh air, and taken a lap. It's good to get some steps, get some fresh air. And it's like, all right, I'm going to go back in and let's hit round two here, right? It's like a boxing match almost. I got back into
Yeah.
my corner. I coached myself up a little bit, and then I got back to it.
I like it. The idea. Here's another thing to hitchhike on what you just said. You get there early, you get a better parking space. What's wrong with that? And check out that list that's at the front desk there and see who's attending, and that'll help you get your strategy together. How about this? Remember, when you're in that situation, back to the superpower we all possess, and that's listening. But as introverts, most introverts they tend to be excellent listeners. That's a networking advantage, not a weakness. Remember that.
And it doesn't just apply to networking for the introverted folks who are listening in here. It's a great leadership characteristic as well too. There's a natural ability to listen and take a step back and read the dynamics of what is happening. So sometimes we can use extroversion with great leadership. We can talk about executive presence another time as well, but I think that's a little overblown as far as its importance for leadership. We need to tap in a little bit more intentionally to our introverted friends.
Yes.
Remember, networking doesn't only happen at events either, Tom. It happens in one-on-one conversations. It happens on LinkedIn. It happens through email. If big events aren't your thing, focus on building those relationships and settings where you might be more comfortable. And sometimes I think about too, like for those of us who had to read The Great Gatsby in high school, it's been a long time for me. I don't remember what grade that was in, but we read Great Gatsby. Maybe it was my junior year. Do you guys read that in high school, Tom?
Yes, we did. Yeah,
You
that's a
did. All right. So
yeah.
it's been in the curriculum for a long time. We'll have to
Yeah.
check in with some of our high school students now to see if that's still part of it. But one of the things that they say in there is like it always stuck with me that bigger parties are more intimate because it's a lot easier to just sneak off to the side with one other person or a couple other people and have a conversation and basically not be noticed at all. So sometimes again, it's just about a little bit of a reframe. Feels maybe big and extravagant and overwhelming at first, but if you can just find a little quiet spot on the side to have a nice conversation, that's a really powerful way. And you're not going to be the only introverted or socially shy person there.
The point is to build genuine connections. How do you do that? And how you do that can look different for different people. So whatever suits your style.
That's right, Tom. So before we close here today, let's think about action. We like to focus on action at the end of these every week. So
Yes.
let's talk about an action step for this week.
How about this? Think of one person you've met recently at an event, maybe in
Mhm.
class or at work or anywhere, who you'd like to stay connected with.
And then, like, let's play the plan right now. You got the name written down. Let's send them that follow up message. If you're already connected on LinkedIn, send a note checking in. If you're not, send a connection request with a personal message. Keep it simple. Reference something specific from your conversation or a common interest that you might have and express interest in staying in touch. That's it. One message, one relationship you're intentionally building.
Perfect. So that's a great way to get started on this. Just what Chris just suggested. One person, reach out there. So small actions like this done consistently are how networks get built.
If you want a structured approach to build your network, along with the other skills we've covered in the series already, that's what Career Blueprint program is all about. That's who it's for.
That's right. Assessments, exercises, and guided support to help you get hired and thrive. That's what Chris and I are all about, helping you get hired and thrive.
That's right. It's not just about finding a job that you're not going to be engaged in or a career that you feel stuck in. It's like we're going to teach you strategies that are going to help you land that job, but help you to continue to evolve. I'm on my third career at this point in time, and there's been some real pivots that we've had to make. But these principles are, again, they're great for launching, but they're also when you're at those different career transition points. Maybe it's getting promoted and moving the ladder. Maybe it's moving completely into a different industry or scope of job. These types of practices and these systems, they work. But let's wrap up with the takeaways from today, Tom.
Sure.
First, networking isn't about collecting contacts, it's about building genuine relationships. 2, the best networkers are the best listeners, not the best talkers.
Mm,
3, start with a place of curiosity. Ask about them, not about what you need from them. 4, follow up within 24 to 48 hours. Schedule it. If you're going to a networking event, you set a goal, you're going to make 2 good contacts. Schedule time on your calendar for that following day to drop a little note. Say, hey, we really enjoyed the conversation. How about a cup of coffee? Last, stay in touch over time by adding value, not just by reaching out when you need some.
that's right. That's what it's all about. Hey, so next episode, we're going to talk about something everybody dreads, the job interview. But we're not just going to give you a list of questions and answers. Nope. We're going to help you understand what interviewers are really looking for and how to show up with confidence.
Right. We don't need to look at an interview as being a test. It's a conversation. It's a conversation, and you can learn to be good at it. The best people go into that and say, "What? I'm pretty good at what I do." Like this is a two-way interview, and we're going to talk about shifting the mindset a little bit there too, where it's like I like the energy. The energy is there from this person. They're a good cultural fit here,
Oh,
and
yeah.
a cultural ad. We'll talk about why both of those are important.
And we'll get into this next time, but believe me, it's a conversation. It's not a one-way interview. Okay. That's important. You notice the word inter, back and forth. Hey, thanks for listening to Building Your Career Blueprint. I'm Tom Borg.
And I'm Chris Dotson. Your career by design. See you next time.